What's your crazy story? Story 1. I could have nearly burned my house down, all because I wanted buffalo wings for dinner. Backstory. So, a little backstory, where I grow up, there is a restaurant chain based on my hometown, not going to mention it for privacy reasons, which was a pizzeria. Like most pizzerias, they offered chicken wings, so this is where we cue the main story. The most eventful night I had this year. So one of my dad's coworkers, they worked for a company which develops biomedical stuff, in case you were wondering, bought in buffalo wings for lunch, and he gave them to my dad. For me, I could have had chicken nuggets or just normal chicken meat, to eat for dinner. At around 5:10, my dad picked me up from my grandpa's house. I do that cause both of my parents work and they don't want to hire a babysitter. I noticed that he had a styrofoam container, with aluminum foil to preserve it. Some of you can see where this is leading up to. I waited for my dad to get in the car and asked him, "Dad, what is in that box from insert pizzeria name?" "Dad, it's buffalo wings." Where I grew up in, you were looked down upon if you didn't like buffalo wings, so I was, of course, going to have them for dinner. It took about 2 minutes to head back to our house, irrelevant to the story, but my mom was there, and then my dad took in the wings. So I got ready to microwave them. Before we go any further, let me just say something. If you combine a microwave with aluminum foil, it will not end well. So, me being the idiot 12-year-old I was, forgot to remove the foil, and then I heard my dad yell, "Dad, don't start the microwave." I kept on walking like it didn't matter, but in 0.121239283928493 seconds I put the 2 and 2 together and ran like Sonic the Hedgehog to the microwave when I heard a spark. My youngest sister saw the spark and yelled at me to do something. Thankfully, it was only in there for 6 seconds, so it didn't cause much damage except to the styrofoam container. A little hole was punctured into it. I then had an adrenaline rush for 20 minutes. Believe it or not, I didn't get punished because my parents said I could learn from my mistakes. My parents weren't entitled, to say the least. I told my friend about this 20 minutes before finishing this post, and his reactions made sense. TLDR. Aluminum foil in microwaves can end you. Story 2. The time me and my brother encountered a murderer on meth. I believe it was March of 2006 and me and my brother encountered a man named Aaron Dunn in Elk Grove, California. Now it was just a regular day. I was about 12 years old at the time and my brother was about 9 or 10 anyways. We come back home from playing basketball and my mom tells me and my brother she needs a few items from the store. Me and my brother didn't hesitate. We loved going to the store because my mom usually would give us a $50 bill and we could get whatever we wanted. So we're walking through the parking lot of the plaza where the store was. We were approached by a man that looked really pissed off and amped up. He pulled up on us pretty fast too, like he didn't want us to leave. He pulls in front of us and asks us, "Hey, how old are you guys?" Me and my brother, not knowing what he was talking about, we thought he was a nutcase, answered 12 and 9. He told me and my brother never let a woman hurt you and stay in school, and he drives off really fast. So me and my brother are kinda shocked, like what the hell was that? Unbeknownst to all us, he ended up shooting 2 people at the Chili's right across the street where the store was. He was caught and sentenced to death in 2010, but I'll never forget that day. I knew he wanted somebody to shoot, but we were too young. He seemed that wouldn't have been right, but that's just one story in my life that has happened. Story 3. My encounter with the Oklahoma bomber. My family owns approximately 85 acres directly next to Terry Nichols in the thumb of Michigan. Right down the street from Tim McVeigh on the corner of Argyle and Germania in Sanilac County, Michigan. Our property is currently listed for sale if anyone is interested. This happened when I was 12 years old if I had to guess, but I am not 100% sure. I was born in 1983, so it would have been around 1994. I never used to go hunting with my dad and typically only would go to the property in the summer to swim in the pond and play with my cousins for a weekend. However, this hunting season there was extremely bad snow and my mom suggested I go with my dad so he wouldn't be alone. I don't recall if I was upset or not about having to go, but I'm sure it was. I hate hunting and would never have the commitment to sit in a tree for hours. I lived in Metro Detroit of 21 Mile Road at the time, so it was a good hour and 20 minutes drive to our property. By the time we arrived the sun was almost set and my dad rushed in to get his hunting gear on and headed straight out to the woods. I should mention that up until this point my dad had already known Terry Nichols for quite a few years, and wasn't a big fan. At first he asked if he could hunt our land as his was all open field and we are really the only woods around for the deer to shelter in. This soon came to an end after several incidences of him screaming at his son at 5 a.m. scaring away all the deer, or so I have been told by my dad. Anyways, As I was sitting in our cabin/trailer, I started hearing branches breaking outside the window, and minutes after that a figure passed the window in the back bedroom. I immediately grabbed my dad's keys and jumped in his truck, started it, and locked the doors. I don't know why I felt more safe in the truck, but I think it's because it was pointing towards the woods and I would have been able to see the minute my dad was done hunting. I don't know how long I sat in the truck for, but after a while a figure walked out of the woods. I immediately jumped out to run to my dad and tell him about what I saw. As I got closer to the figure, I could hear the snow crunching as it walked, and we got about 20 feet apart when the figure stopped and froze in its tracks. I called out and said, "Dad," in a whisper, because you always whisper when hunting. No response. I don't remember if it was a full moon that night or if it was the snow creating a reflection, but I was able to make out that it was a man and he was holding something. My first thought is that it was my dad and that he may have heard a deer, so he was listening for it. So we both stood staring at each other in silence for a good minute or two, and the figure turned around and walked back across the bridge, crossing our river behind the cabin. I ran back to the truck and waited again for I don't know how long. Soon after, another figure came out of the woods and I turned on the headlights and was relieved to see my dad and his gun. I jumped out and started asking him why he would do that. He was oblivious to what I was saying and told me that he was in the back tree blind and never got out the whole night. The next morning when we woke up, we traced the tracks across the bridge and into the woods heading towards Terry's house. To this day I don't know for sure who the figure was, but I am 99% sure it was Terry Nichols and he was poaching my land. About a year later he was caught and the FBI did a sweep of our property just to be sure he didn't stash anything we didn't know about. The last I saw Terry, he chased me down on a three-wheeler and ran me and my friend across the road for cutting across his field. Cops were called, but they didn't do anything about it. He was jailed roughly a year later and eventually gassed. Today we are surrounded by one family that bought his house, I believe, from auction. Story 4. My best friend stabbed her dad. Let's name this girl Samantha. So Samantha and I met in high school freshman year. We grew close as we were both borderline misfits. She more than I. She was a very sweet girl, very shy, and you could tell she was looking to break free of the religious background she came from. I, on the other hand, was emo. I was everything she wanted to be. Her words. So we began a friendship and she learned a lot from me. She started to change. She would tell me her parents were getting upset that she was straying from her religion and beliefs. She didn't care. She admired me. She looked up to me. I didn't let that be a thing though. I saw her as a friend. I didn't look down at her. I didn't take advantage of her admiration. We were friends. So after a while we became best friends. I was always at her house or she was always at mine. She mentioned a boy, let's call him Jake, to me. She said she's been hanging out with him and thinks she likes him. This is where things started getting a little weird. She told me that they were ninjas and they were going to start a group of ninjas. She would draw ninjas all over her schoolwork. She became a tad obsessed with ninjas and Jake. It worried me a little bit. Anyway, so one day we're sitting in class and we're on this kind of free time. She turns to me and starts talking about us being sisters and how she wishes she could live with me and us be actual sisters. I tell her I'd love that and I'm sure my mom would be okay with that if she ever lost her parents or whatever the case. This was not in a serious tone. I didn't wink at her. I didn't insinuate anything at all. But the next day she drew up her ninjas attacking people. I saw it and didn't say anything about it. She asked me one time, so if my parents died, would you adopt me? I thought what a weird question, but said yeah and laughed afterwards. The next morning everyone is talking about Samantha. She's nowhere to be seen. The rumors spread like wildfire. Samantha stabbed her dad? I was in shock. I was in total disbelief. This wasn't real and she is no way capable of doing that. Or was she? The days go on and I get called into the counselor's office where a detective starts asking me what I know. I tell her everything as I do not want to be involved or blamed for any of this. They let me go back to class and I'm sobbing. This girl who I became best friends with really tried to take out her parents just so I could adopt her. It wasn't real. I blamed myself. I couldn't sleep or eat. I felt like my words pushed her to do it. To this day, almost 10 years later, I still feel a small amount of guilt. I've talked to her since then. She says a part of it was Jake's fault. And says not to feel any guilt as she did everything on her own. She told me what happened that night. She said she dressed in all black, grabbed a kitchen knife, and went into her parents' room. She said she couldn't see too much but heard her dad move and ask what was going on before she started stabbing his face and hands which were shielding his face. He survived. She said it felt like stabbing a watermelon. Now every time I see a watermelon, That's all I think about. She was admitted to a psychiatric facility after the ninja's drawings were found, among other things. After that they sent her to a juvenile detention center. So much has changed since then. She's married now with 2 little boys and very happy with her life. But I know this will always be with her. Story 5. I'm scarred for life. My name is Matthew. I am almost 13 years old. This story happened when I was 11 years old. I had to go to my parents' country, aka El Salvador. So I went with my mom, aged 52, and dad, who is around his 40s, and my sister, who is 33 and she is now turning 35 in a week. So anyways, we were relaxing, and then my mom, dad and sis went to my brother-in-law's grandparents' house. My brother-in-law is now dead, so my sister is out the house and I'm in my brother-in-law's grand's house with my mom, dad and me. So we go to sleep, and then about 10 minutes later I'm scared for life. I hear groans and moans coming across the room, and I hear slime noises, and then it hits me. They're ducking having sex with me in the room and in a house that's not even ours. I felt like offing them. Anyhow, they preformed for about 7 more minutes and I'm pretending to be sleeping, but my heart was going as fast as a race car. I'm over there practically having a seizure and hearing my mom groaning, but then my sister comes back to the house and they just stop, and my sis comes inside the room and I pretend to wake up even though I wasn't sleeping, and then I tell my mom I heard a noise and I pretend it was the neighbors, but little do they know I knew they had sex. And then we left. The bed was covered in white stuff and I can't even look at the bed. I didn't tell my sis they had sex in the guest bed, but I'm scared for life now. And also, guess what? The ducking at 6, and this time it was a hotel, and this time my sis and me were there and I pretend to fall asleep, and then it happens all ducking over again, and this time with my sis in the room and me too. Anyways, that's my story. I still have memories about it and I'm officially scared for life. I don't know if I'll ever forget and tell them that I heard them, but PLS, pray for me, I'm scarred for life. Story 6. I spotted cancer on my father's ear. One day I was with my father riding to practice when I looked at his ear and saw something black, and it didn't look natural. I thought the worst since he had already had skin cancer before, so I asked him. He had never even seen it before since it was never the back of his ear. One day he went to the dermatologist for his checkup and he asked about the small black spot behind his ear. It turned out to be a bit of cancer that had just been behind his ear for who knows how long. He got it operated and now he is just a little better. Story 7. My childhood wasn't exactly normal. So when I was younger I lived in a small townhouse community with a pretty large trailer park close by. I was never really all that concerned, just kind of riding around through there just to see which kids were out playing, as the only other kids in my neighborhood at the time were my brother, a little kid who I kinda adopted as a little brother because I was the youngest and always wanted a younger brother but was the last apple, so to speak, and a former bully of mine. So I kinda needed to outsource for friends. Anyway, my dad really didn't like me going to the trailer park because apparently there was a pedophile that lived out there somewhere, but I was like 6 or 7, so that's not something he was ready to explain to me nor something I could properly conceptualize, so I just assumed he was trying to kill my fun or whatever and disregarded him fairly regularly about it, even going so far as to come home after dark at times. Anyway, he got really tired of it, so one day he decided to pay some local high school seniors, and I have no idea how, to stage a kidnapping on me to impress upon me the dangers of strangers, I guess. So one day I'm minding my own business, just coming back from a party store with some candy I bought with some money I'd saved, and this white van came speeding down the street and slammed on the brakes. At first I was confused, but then, very much like the movies, the sliding side door flies open and like 4 straight up grown looking dudes starts rushing me. Now for a kid I was in pretty good shape, so I really thought I could outrun them, but naturally they caught up with me, threw me in their van, and drove around taunting me and telling me they were going to kill me, and basically all kinds of empty but seriously toned threats. I can't remember if they had restrained me or not, as I've blocked it out mostly, but I just remember when the van finally stopped and I pretty much thought I'd arrived at my final destination, and I was crying and hyperventilating. The sliding door opened to my parents' smiling faces. They were just laughing as if it was just a silly prank. They explained everything and I eventually calmed down. I didn't go back to that trailer park for a while though. Story 8. Is the Bible fiction? According to one atheist mad lad in my class, yes. We have a very religious teacher in my class, who used to really bother this one atheist kid in our class. When summer vacation came around, we had summer reading work, where we needed to write about a fiction book. Mr. Mad Lad read the Bible, and did his summer work on it. He came on the first day of school, and the teacher asked him why he did it, and for him to explain himself. And he just told her, "Can you prove that all of it actually happened?" I wish I could say the story had a happy ending, and everyone clapped, but he got in a lot of trouble, and ended up switching schools. Story 9. My mother was the first person to know where George Bush was heading during 9/11. My mother worked for the Omaha World Herald and was working the morning of the attack. A government friend of hers leaked to her that Bush was headed for Omaha to stay safe during the attacks. She ran to her editor and told him the news. The editor told her that there is no way it is true because there isn't a reason for him to come here. Turns out the Air Force Base here is where he would go in case of a national attack, and it was secret. So my mother was the first person to know that the Bush was headed to Omaha on September 11th outside of government officials. And nobody believed her. Story 10. Crazy nanny story. Need to get this off my chest. We have a 3-year-old boy and a 3-month-old girl. Our son is in daycare. Daughter's little, so our family has agreed to help us pay for a nanny. We have an amazing nanny starting very soon, but we needed coverage until then. Enter nanny. Ara interviewed well, so we hired her. She's young, 18 we think. My husband works from home, but can't work and take care of baby, so we figure we'll be fine. For the record, I have 2 rules. 1. Show up. 2. No screen time. Not because I'm crazy against screen time, but I'm not paying you to watch TV. I'm paying you to play with my kid. Okay, here we go. Day 1, she was scheduled to be there for 4 hours. Within the first 2 hours she tells me how her and her boyfriend got together officially on April 1st because they wanted to tell this I found out later ex-wife, who he has kids with, that Ara was pregnant as an April Fool's. She found out later that she was pregnant, but her boyfriend didn't want any more kids, so she had an abortion. Listen, I'm pro-choice and pro-women's rights, but that's a bit much on the first day. Day 2, her shift was the Wednesday before July 4th. An eventful shift, but she texts me later that day to ask for an advance on her next week's pay because her landlord is going to evict her for non-payment. Landlord won't extend her due date because she's done this multiple times. Day 3, my daughter had a really rough day/night and she was refusing her bottles. I continued to offer the bottle, but if daughter refused after 2 seconds, I would assume she wasn't hungry. I arrived home and my daughter is screaming. Found out that daughter hasn't had any food in 4 hours. I immediately nursed daughter and R sits in my living room waiting for her ride. She doesn't have a car. While she's in there, she calls someone and gets into an argument with him, hangs up the phone, then starts crying. I sit silently because it was so awkward. Day 5, and calls in sick. Day 7, husband and I notice a lot of toilet paper missing. Like a whole roll. Day 8, another roll of toilet paper missing. Day 12, okay, so let me back up. The previous week I had stomach issues and made myself a cocktail of Powerade and Miralax. I didn't drink all of it, so I put it in the fridge. Now on to day 12. Before she gets there, I'm cleaning the house in the morning. I find my Powerade bottle behind some pillows in my couch. I asked my husband if he drank it and he said no. I asked if and asked about it, he said no. Well, that's where the toilet paper went. Day 13, there's a half package of crackers from my pantry out on the living room couch. Neither my husband nor I ate them. Day 14, generic comments about her brother's bad behavior is because her mom didn't beat his ass enough. To each their own, but I'm anti-corporal punishment. These comments made me fear the children she may take care of in the future. Day 15, R comes in very excited that her boyfriend got an inheritance, so they bought a car and she got to drive it. She then said, I'm going to go to the DMV to get my permit tomorrow. Wait, I said, you don't have a license? No, I just need to pass the test. But I can drive no problem. Day 16, calls in sick, supposedly with strep. Can't work until after weekend. Finally fired them. Yes, I waited way too long, but daughter was never in danger, so we didn't. Story 11. My dad went into a limo with Michael Jackson's older brother. My dad and his friend was going over to their hotel in London and they saw a bunch of people circling around some bodyguards. While my dad was on his way into the hotel, Jermaine was walking out of the hotel and walked into the limo surrounded by people. My dad saw an opening in the crowd and just sat down next to him, and the bodyguards told him to step out of the vehicle, but Jermaine told them that it's okay. I have no idea what he actually said because I wasn't there, but I'm guessing it was something like that. But yeah, long story short, he basically could have been arrested, but instead he got a picture with Michael Jackson's brother. Story 12. Craziest story. 100% true. The mother of my 2 beautiful children cheated on me for the last time. Let's set the setting so you'll understand what I'm going through. I'm 22 and me and my family stay with my mother. I'm jobless and currently going through 3 court cases. So I just found out that my girlfriend of 5 years cheated on me with the guy that tried to kill me. At the end of 2018, the month before Christmas, I went through my girl's phone. Now before you say I shouldn't have done it, the reason I went through her phone is because, she started showing signs of her not wanting to have anything sexual to do with me. And I seen her messaging my friend Lil, calling him baby and how she was glad to see his kid today and he wanted to see her. I had shut that down real quick, or so I thought. So I let this situation go and a few months go by. One day as I open my phone I see a message request on Messenger. It's a fake profile that's not registered to anyone, I don't know. But as I read the message it says, how does it feel to know I docked your bitch? I instantly get upset and confront her about it. She swears up and down that she doesn't know who it is and she don't know why they would say that, so me being the good guy, I let it go and don't start a argument. Then, the next month is when shit got real. As I wake up, once again I get another message from the same person. Now before I continue, after the previous act, I literally got on my hands and knees and begged her to leave him alone. So I open the message and this time it's the ducking video of my girl playing with herself. Keep in mind that I know it's her because of the nails and the way her pussy looks. I also don't have this video. Pathetic, right? It's about 10 in the morning and she's still asleep. So this is how the conversation goes. What does this prove? That I had your girl swallowing me. Come with more evidence and I'll believe you. Sends a nude of her, no face in the pic, and I actually have this one. She sent it to me at the same time she sent it to him. That could be anyone. So what are you trying to prove? You're a goofy. Blah blah blah. That's why I docked your bitch when she was pregnant with your kid. And I'm glad you don't know because I'm gonna play my role. I couldn't reply after that. I confront her and she still claims the same thing. Whatever, so I let it go again. But this time I told her if I have to deal with him again we're done. So the day before yesterday was the 4th of July, we went to the fair with our kids so they could see fireworks. We don't stay long because when we got there, it was about 5 minutes before the fireworks went off. We leave and come home, she tries to make it a good night so she gives me some pretty ducking bomb head. The next day goes by and it's nighttime. During that day she was irritated at everything. It was terrible, so I knew something was up. I go through her phone but this time, it was her that messaged him. I woke her ass up so ducking fast. We argued, I dumped her. But we still ducking love together. I don't know what to do about this shit. So that's why I'm here. Any questions or advice please comment below. Story 13. My friend's flying trampoline. This happened like a couple of years ago, so if I leave something out feel free to ask in the comments. But the reason why I am telling this story today is kind of funny. Okay, so back in like 5th grade, we were experiencing a weird storm. No rain. No clouds. Just very strong wind. So, like 5th graders do, when your friends have a trampoline. That is the place to be. So we were bouncing around and keep in mind that this isn't a small trampoline. It is about 15 feet wide on all sides. So after like 30 minutes, we felt the trampoline start to shake. I stayed on because I am not the smartest in the friend group, but my friend go off. All of a sudden the trampoline went off the ground, and I dove for the exit. I made it. I look up to see the trampoline head towards the house. The trampoline flipped over the house and started to fall. It went right into the roof. It took like a week to get down. I accidentally forgot to take my shoes out of the trampoline before it flew away, so one of my shoes fell as the trampoline flew away to the house. But the other one was just gone. So last night, at the same friend's house, we were on his new trampoline and decided to go for a bike ride to Graffiti Bridge, another story. When we got there I saw this weird thing in the trees. I climbed the tree and saw a size 7 boys wide shoe. My name on the inside. So after about 3 to 4 years, I found my old shoe. What makes this weirder is that Graffiti Bridge is almost 3 miles away from my friend's house. How? Remember to like and subscribe. Story 14. My highway patrol story. I couldn't find anywhere else to post this, so here goes. I used to sell XOs, just a slang name around here for ecstasy pills. I live in East Texas, live on a small road with 2 houses off of a highway. This road is about 60 to 70 yards long. And my house is at the very end. Well, late at night about 3 months ago I was waiting out by the highway because my friend wanted to pull up and buy some. Can't do it at my place, our old white snobby neighbors are snitches. I was already on an XO pill so I was slow and my coordination was Oz, but I was hiding behind a big old pine tree trying not to be seen by passing cars. I'm wearing a dark gray hoodie with my hood on, totally not suspicious, right? My friend texts me that he's on his way and will be there soon. I wait for what seems like maybe 10 minutes and I see headlights. This tree is no more than 15 feet from the road. I poked my head out to see if it was him, and who am I greeted by? A highway patrol car. I dart my head back and fast and he passes and my mind starts racing. I'm just telling myself maybe he didn't see me. Nope, I see his blinker turn on and his brake lights come on. This road is a 55 miles per hour, so it takes a bit to slow down, but lo and ducking behold, my friend pulls up right as this highway patrolman is turning around in another driveway about 100 yards away on top of a hill. I yell and say, "Teresa, cop, ducking go!" And I ran pretty fast down the driveway and he sped off down the road. I see the op's headlights coming back, so I hide on the edge of the road. Didn't drive down the road that led to my house, but he went by it really slow. I didn't think much of it. I thought he'd just leave it alone and go back to patrolling. I couldn't have been more wrong. My friend is parked at a lake about 2 minutes away. We waited out 15 minutes and I tell him to come back. He pulls up, we make the deal, and he goes off. I stay out for a little longer and light a blunt cause you know, I didn't want the smell around or in the house, plus because it feels nice and everything. But about a quarter mile away I hear a car start, but there's no lights around. We're in the middle of nowhere. And then I see headlights and police lights come on as the highway patrolman from earlier shoots out of the ditch on the side of the road and throws his light bar on. He was going really fast, and I immediately knew he had saw the deal. There's no way he could have pulled there without me seeing/hearing him. I throw the blunt in my pocket and I turned around and ran as fast as I could. I have no idea why he went for me instead of my friend who was the one who have stuff in their car. I guess he saw me smoke the blunt and thought I was the one who bought something instead of sold. But I was still noticeably on the XO pills, so I would have gotten in trouble either way. Anyways, adrenaline kicks in and I'm just a Usain Bolt sprinting as fast as I can to my house, and about 30 yards into the left there's some really thick woods. I look back and he was only what I'm guessing about 40 or so feet from me. I gasped and immediate panic set in. I cut left hard and ran into the woods and I hear a door slam as I'm pushing my way through this thorn thicket. He's only 20 or less feet away from me now. He must have been a bigger guy because it took him some work to try and get through the thorns, and since it was dark he probably wouldn't know where to aim his stun gun if he had one, and that gave me some extra lead. I run and find a good hiding spot, all the while running into trees cause I'm high and can't see. I'm guessing he gave up trying to get through the thorns because I never heard him after that. I waited for I don't even know how long and called it safe. I get up and walk as quietly as I can to my house. Through the woods, I reach our little 4-foot chain link fence. I try to hop it, ended up tripping and ripping my favorite pair of sweatpants. I was pissed but duck it, I got away. I walk in my house, through the back door, go to the bathroom, and proceed to throw up until I was dry heaving. My younger brother, who is 11, I'm 16, witnessed the entire thing from the window in our upstairs loft. I told him to keep quiet and not tell anyone what he saw. Scariest cop experience of my life. Stopped selling and don't plan on ever doing it again. The next day we get a knock on the door and my dad goes to answer. It's a county sheriff, and he asks if he's seen any suspicious activity in the neighborhood lately because someone has been out by the highway most likely buying or selling drugs. My dad says no because he's always in bed by 9 and his bedroom is in the back away from the highway. But I was really worried about my neighbors because I had accidentally set off their motion light a couple of times on my way to the highway, but nothing ever happened after that. I'm still scared of getting identified by the dash cam since I looked back for a second to see how close he was to me, but since I had my hood on I think I'm good and they've let it go at this point if 3 months have passed. I really dodged a bullet that night. I'm very paranoid about taking my dog and brother on late night walks down the road to the highway and back in fear of an officer being nearby, even though I have nothing illegal on me. But does anyone have any sort of explanation for why he didn't chase my friend or chase me sooner instead of waiting? That's what my mind is stuck on. Edit. The thing I'm really salty about was wasting a perfectly good blunt by letting it run and burn a hole into my pocket. Good AirPods hoodie ruined. Story 15. Kid on Fortnite spoils endgame and get karma. Bad. No spoilers. So for context, I was playing Fortnite endgame and I haven't seen endgame, so this sucked for me, but it should be interesting for you. I load into a game and I'm on the Avengers side. Yay! And I realize I have a dude with a mic in my team. Me. Hey, what's up? RK, random kid, have you seen endgame yet? Me, no, PLS don't spoiler. RK, oh yeah. Tells me who died. Then I hear a girl come in and say, if you spoil endgame one more time I will get dad's butcher knife and butcher you right here and now. I'm here like oh god, and I'm like at least no more spoilers. Then the girl says this is your last chance. Someone picks up the mic, says goodbye and the mic cuts out. I know this was short but it was funny as heck when it happened. Story 17. Big undressed black man on PCP at Cathedral. This is my ever added post, so I apologize if it is a little rough. In order for you to best understand and to protect the characters, I will set the cast. Me aged 14. Bro. My older brother aged 15. Blonde. Girl from youth group aged 14. Brunette. Girl from youth group aged 15. BNBM. Big undressed black man aged about 30. YM. Youth minister. P. Priest. This all happened December of last year, and me, bro, blonde, and brunette were all going on a trip to Washington DC with YM. Since we live across the country, this was not a cheap trip, so we went to our cathedral with YM to collect donations on a Sunday. We were collecting the entire day at 5 different masses, so it was pretty boring sitting outside of a church the entire day. By the time we had already collected from 2 masses, it was about noon and everybody was bored out of their minds. We were all just waiting normally and preparing for what would be the busiest mass of the day at 1. While I am busy getting things in order, Blonde sees a car pull up and thinks nothing of it. The car door opens and she sees a tall, probably 6 feet 3 inches black man come out of the car. She is taken by surprise because she realizes he doesn't have a shirt on, but she tries to act like it isn't a big deal. It isn't until a few moments later when the man closes the car door and Blonde realizes that he also had no pants on. Now she is sort of freaking out and in disbelief, so she tells Bro she sees a BNBM. Bro, thinking she is just bullshitting, turns around and sees BNBM casually walking across the parking lot directly to the church. Bro is literally speechless until he tells me and Brunette, do not turn around, there is a BNBM behind us. Of course, hearing that, Brunette immediately turns around, sees the BNBM, and lets out a small yelp as he is about 20 feet away by now. BNBM keeps casually walking until there is no avoiding seeing him and he walks directly into the church. About a minute later we see a man pushing BNBM out of the church, now wrapped with a blanket around his waist. It is important to note that the man pushing him out was no taller than 5 feet 10 inches while the BNBM was built like a defensive lineman from the NFL. As if it wasn't bizarre enough, things get weirder from there. BNBM goes from completely calm and composed to full-on bawling and screaming in a thick African accent. He kept screaming things like, "My people are dying. And you are neglecting my people." P then comes out and starts blessing the BNBM and attempts to calm him down. By now me, Bro, Blonde, and Brunette were completely dumbfounded, so Blonde called YM and told her there was a BNBM in the cathedral. YM immediately came over from the building she was at and escorts us away from the incident. We were all disappointed to have to leave and not get to witness what was going on, but also relieved because it was really strange and scary to see a BNBM in the cathedral. We all thought the story ended there, but since we were at the cathedral the entire day, we got to hear more details later in the day. We learned that in the time that we were taken away from the incident, the cops were called. Before the cops arrived, the BNBM left peacefully in his car, at this time clothed. When the cops arrived, they told YM that they received reports of several similar incidents from a man with a very similar description. And this isn't it. There was also a random witness from inside the cathedral that told YM probably the best part of the story. Apparently when BNBM went into the cathedral, he walked towards the altar and said, "I am God and you all are here worshipping the devil." And just to put the icing on the cake, that random witness told her husband, who is a firefighter, about the event, and the husband said the description of the man matched the description of people on PCP. So basically a normal Sunday for collecting donations turned into a bunch of teenagers seeing a BNBM on PCP walk into a cathedral pronouncing himself as God. I highly doubt I will ever have a story better than this, and I hope somebody is at least as intrigued and as dumbfounded by this story as I was. Well, that's all for today. This was an interesting bunch. Remember to check out the channel, and remember to have a wonderful day.